Pads and tampons are really bad for our health. To me, they were a revolution, and that was a huge revolution for women, but it was like more than 30 years ago. And in those 30 years, nothing. No innovation for women, either in terms of menstruation or in terms of contraception. So this product, I would say, is an amazing start because it's replacing all the chemicals that we used to have for so many years now. There's a studies from the University of Berkeley that has been released just a few months ago. And it says that in pads and tampons, there are more than 30 heavy chemicals and heavy metals. So chemicals will be glyphosate, chloromethane, styrene, and glyphosate, something that no one knows, but it's the number one chemical responsible for most of the cancer in the world.
Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with Céline Ventalon. She is the founder of Emer and is talking to me from Vietnam, where she is based. So thank you so much for talking to me today, Céline.
It's a pleasure, and I really thank you, Pail, for having me on your podcast. I'm always grateful for people that gave me a voice and where we can open the conversation on women health. So thanks again.
Yeah, I think it's a very important conversation. And the more people that hear about it and the more information and knowledge they have, I think there's a lot of myth and mystique and a lot of wrong information, which I think by talking to people and creating this awareness, hopefully some of it becomes a little more common knowledge. So thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing. And I know we haven't really mentioned what you're doing. So let's start off by asking you, for anyone that hears reusable period underwear for the first time, what does it feel like on a heavy day? And what has surprised some of the early users the most?
I will talk about my experience. When I was first introduced to menstrual underwear, I think my first reaction was like, I'm not a baby. And in my head, I imagine it like a diaper. So I was like, I'm not a baby. I'm not going to wear a diapers. It's going to be super thick. And there's no way, even though I wasn't happy with pads and tampons, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to wear it. And then I tried and I was forced to try. And then my first impression was, wow, it looks like a normal underwear. So why not give it a try? And then definitely when I try, even on your heavy days, so you have different level of absorption. I can explain later, but basically it's working exactly like a sanitary pad. So for those that has worries, it works exactly the same, except that it's not a product that is disposable. It's a product that you can wash and reuse.
Okay. And so when you say you can wash and reuse, can you just, for people who may find it a bit unusual, can
Yeah.
you just explain? And then we'll talk about more about the product, of how you actually got into it and all of that. But since you mentioned it, can you just explain a little bit to the young people who probably are skeptical about using it?
Yeah, especially I think in Southeast Asia, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of misconception. And the first one I think is to think that blood and period are impure, that it's dirty. So that's why the washing can be very difficult for a Singaporean woman, Vietnamese woman, Thai woman. But I think we need to look at the big pictures. It's just that period are a natural biological process, and having our period is basically giving life. Without period, there will be no ovulation and no way for women to have babies, or even for the human to have babies. I think it's very important to understand that it is natural. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not dirty, it's not impure. Even in Vietnam, I know when you have your period, you cannot go to a pagoda because it's impure. But I think we need to fight those misconceptions. We need to fight all the taboos. And it's when a woman have kids, obviously we need to clean the pee, the poo of our babies. And honestly, it's way more disgusting than our own blood. And for those who are really, I think, disgusted by it, there is a very natural way to do it. And that's what I do myself. It's at the end of the day, usually, after a long day, I go shower, especially when I have my period. I take the panty with me and under the water of the shower, it's the blood is diluted. You can barely see it. And until the water is clear, you can just rinse it. Whenever it's rinsed and there's no more blood, then you can just wash it as any other regular underwear. So I think for those that really have a hard time saying, I prefer to throw my pads after 3 hours and then never look at it. And it's just so simple. You roll it and done. But I think beyond that, we need to think of the consequences of our action. First, for our health, and second, for sustainability. Definitely, I know in Southeast Asia, the major barrier will be the washing. But again, as women, we need to stand strong and to say, I'm having my period. And so, what is the issue? It's just normal. And I think from there, we can definitely break all the taboos and the misconception.
Okay, yeah. You're now, my understanding is that you're now starting to shelve your panties in Singapore. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's already happened or you're about to launch. I'm not sure. But have you
Yeah.
already launched?
So we launched, it was beginning of April. No, I did actually end of April. And we're very proud of it because we're basically bringing to a new market a product that is unknown. So basically the product, the market is immature. Our customer or prospect, they don't know our product. So I really want to thank Guardian for taking the risk of having our brand, our product on shelves in Singapore because they're supporting women health, they're supporting sustainability, and I really would like to thank them for that. So right now we are in more than 35 outlets in Singapore, so only Guardians. I think it's available on our website or even we can share the location with you. But I think it's really important because so many women they don't even know about this product. So first I think the most important is to bring the education and then to bring points of retail where actually women can buy the product, because before that it was almost impossible to find in Singapore on a global scale.
Yeah, so you've mentioned Guardian, for example, which is where you're shelving. And yeah, I do understand that they are very conscious and they are promoting women's health, which is really good.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, the section where your panties will be shelved would probably be next to tampons and pads.
correct.
How do you educate a user to say, okay, don't look at the tampons or the pads, but go towards the panties and try one? How difficult has it been? And Singapore, like you mentioned, because Vietnam, it's been there for a while, but Singapore, it's new. So let's just focus on Singapore and how are you working along with Guardian to actually educate the Singaporean women or whoever, women in general, to really choose the pad and not to choose the pad or the tampon, but to go with the panty.
First, it's a long process. It's for those who already know the product or have heard about it, when they will see it on shelves, they will say, oh, why not? But for those, and it's the majority who don't know anything about it, when they first see the product on shelf, so first we have a top shelf banner. So it's not just the product on shelf, but we are trying to explain why we are good for women health, why we are good for sustainability, and also something that was very important for me. So we have a QR code, and people can just scan this QR code and have more information about the product. For example, how does it work? How do I wash it? Why is it better for my health? How long can I use it during the day? So I think all those questions that everyone can address, I think it's very important to bring an answer that is right away on site whenever they want to look for other products. The other things that we did is that we put a sample of the fabric and all the layers so that if people want to feel, touch, they can also have the feeling of the fabric, which is very important as well.
Okay, so now let's talk about the fabric. You've mentioned that it's toxin free. So, how do you prove this batch after batch? And what is the test for it? And basically, what would trigger a recall? Because it's important for it to maintain the same consistency all the time.
Exactly. No, it's very important. And our product, we claim to be harmful without any harmful chemicals. So the thing is, all our fabric, the technology was imported from France. And then we work locally with French Vietnamese supplier that are really, let's say, experts in menstrual lingerie and in lingerie in general. So basically, all our fabric are ecotex, which means that we respect the labor and also the origin of the fabric and without any harmful chemicals. And then the second, when the product is finished, then we have been tested by, so here before it leaves Vietnam, by another company. They control the quality and also the chemicals, which is called Vina Control. So we have two steps of controlling that the product that we serve on shelves is actually really harmless for women health. Something also that is very important, I think, is obviously pads and tampons, and probably that's your next question, but I'm jumping on it. Pads and tampons are really bad for our health. To me, they were a revolution, and that was a huge revolution for women, but it was like more than 30 years ago. And in those 30 years, nothing, no innovation for women, either in terms of menstruation or in terms of contraception. So this product, I would say, is an amazing start because it's replacing all the chemicals that we used to have for so many years now. There's a studies from the University of Berkeley that has been released just a few months ago, and it says that in pads and tampons there are more than 30 heavy chemicals and heavy metals. So
Wow.
chemicals will be glyphosate, chloromethane, styrene, and glyphosate, something that no one knows, but it's the number one chemical responsible for most of the cancer in the world. And then in part for the heavy metals, you have arsenic, mercury, and this is just a tiny bit of all the heavy metals. So obviously, I don't want to scare anyone because it's like smoking. It's very small particles of chemicals, and obviously they're allowed to sell this product. But it's just that as a woman, we use those chemicals, those products, those heavy metals on a monthly basis for an average of 39 years on our life. So this is way too much. And those chemicals and heavy metals are in direct contact of the skin that is very absorbent, either the outside or inside our vagina. So it's very important to understand that, yes, it does have an impact. And I will talk, if you allow me, later on, maybe on the medical research and on the medical reports that I had from medical center in Vietnam and in Singapore that really proves my point.
Yeah, no, please go ahead. It would be
Yes,
really interesting, yeah, to
yes.
understand. Yeah.
So I've been talking with a lot of medical center here in Vietnam. So one of them is Family Medical Practice, the French Vietnamese Hospital, CMI, which is the center, the medical French center, and basically, and also medical center in Singapore. And they all say the same thing, that over the past 30 years, some cancers related to women health has been on rise. And why? So pelvic cancers, breast cancers, uterus, I don't know, it's called in French, it's called the col de l'utérus. So basically, everything that is related to our feminine hygiene has been seen some rise of cancers. And it's not a wonder. So we cannot put the finger at it because obviously there's huge companies behind it. But this is fact and the numbers are here. So I think it's very important to understand that yes, these products were nice. And sometimes you can also use it because I don't like to be extreme. So if some woman wants to keep using it, I think it's fine because it will be like not on a regular monthly basis, especially if you go to swimming on your holidays and you really need to use tampons. But I guess on a regular basis, it's very important to switch to other products, whether it is a cups that is also a very good alternative, or to product like menstrual underwear.
And yeah, no, so it's interesting how there is so much of medical research that has been done, but I think obviously the companies that produce these pads and tampons must have huge lobbies, which is why they're not really able to scale it down. But and I think it's people like yourself who's I understand that these kind of panties are available in France and they're available in the US, but for you to bring it to the Asian market, is a revolution in itself, and you have to start from somewhere. I just wanted
Yeah.
to ask you before moving on, Asia, especially Southeast Asia and South Asia, the conditions are very generally hot, humid. The homes, and also a lot of people have tiny bathrooms.
Yeah.
In terms of the humidity, the heat, the hygiene, what would you recommend for the people who buy these panties? You have mentioned how to wash them, but I
Yeah.
think in terms of the wearing of them or the taking care of them, do you have any recommendations and suggestions?
It's actually a very good point what you're saying. In Southeast Asia, it's very humid, very hot. Even when you use a pad, a sanitary pad, it can be very sticky, it can be very smelly because it gets so hot that the bacteria grows even faster than in Europe when it's winter time. So those conditions, those facts are very important to take into consideration. When you use a menstrual underwear, the fabric are antibacterial. Whenever you wear the panty, so obviously you will still sweat because there's nothing we can do about sweating. But the bacteria will grow, but way slower than in a pad or a tampon, which allows you to wear the panty for way longer than if it was a regular sanitary pad and without any risk. And actually, you are lowering the risk of having urinary infection that we all had
Yeah.
or vaginal infection, fungus. By using menstrual underwear, you will definitely decrease the number of infection. Why? Because of the antibacterial properties. Something also that Emer we did is we understand the weather is so hot that in our panty we had two options, the daytime and the nighttime. So difference between the two panties is simply for the daytime, the protection at the back of the panties is ending in the middle. Why? So the breastness of the panties is, let's say, more effective than the one for nighttime that goes until the top of the back of the panty. Why for nighttime we did it until the top? Simply because when we lie down at night, when we sleep, so usually we lie down on our mattress and we all had that feeling of the fluid coming
Yeah.
under, and then in the morning we have our bed sheet with stain and so on. So that was actually to prevent those stain, that the panties is absolutely, the protection is going until the top of the panties. So compared to a pad, it's definitely the size of the pad is way bigger in a menstrual underwear than in a regular pad.
Okay. It's way bigger, but is
It's way bigger for the nighttime.
for the nighttime. Okay. And obviously, the panties, because it's fabric, the panties are light weight as compared to. But when there is blood, does it get a menstrual blood? Does the panty get heavy or no?
No, it doesn't get heavy because also something that we have no idea of is how many blood do we lose in one day? Because we can feel it. We can feel, oh my God, like I'm bleeding out. But in reality, it's only 45 millimeters per day. So those 45 can be clock. It can be very liquid, but in general, let's say it's between. So it depends on every woman, obviously, and especially those that are closest to menopause, the intense it gets, but I will say on a regular 45 millimeters. And we don't lose it at one time. So it's
Yeah.
little by little. So what is amazing with the panties is that the first layers is actually a fabric. It's the same as a dry fit that Nike and Adidas use. So it will absorb, it's like sweat. It will absorb very quickly the fluid and then it will get dry very quickly. Second fabric is actually the microfiber. So this fabric is made to keep the fluid and then keep it and not, let's say, have leak. And then the third layers is the anti-leak layer. So this one is made of a little layers of plastic, which we had no choice, but it's made to prevent any leaking either on the side or in the crotch itself. And then the fourth layers is the outside layer. So for fashion purpose, can be cotton, can be polyester, any of it. So to return to my leaking, whenever it leaks a little, then the first layer will dry approximately within 20 to 25 minutes. So you won't have that feeling of being wet at all, and it won't be super heavy at all. It's really working like a sanitary pad.
Okay. Okay.
Even
Interesting.
better because sometimes the pad you can feel it's wet.
You can feel it. Yeah, correct. And also, it does feel a little heavy. At times, yeah. I wanted to ask you, you are sponsoring a women's football team, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So,
Geleng, yeah.
yes, what's the name of the team?
Geleng soccer team. It's a feminine soccer team
Okay, in Vietnam.
in Singapore.
Oh, Geylang. Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. So have you obviously then the women or the players all wear your panty.
yeah.
So
They've tried. Yeah,
yeah, they've tried it. Okay, so
yeah.
have you had any, because being an athlete is a completely different ball game altogether, whether you play soccer or you play tennis or whatever it is. So have you heard any locker room talk? And have you about people about the players who may have tried it? That's one. And two, how have you tried to educate the players to
Mhm.
make sure that, not make sure, but for their own benefit,
Yeah.
they actually wear the Emer panties?
That's a very interesting question. So the first thing that we did is basically we informed the coach and then the management team and about our product because we were like, okay, we want to sponsor your team, but this is a kind of a sensitive subject. Is it okay if we talk to the girls? Is it won't they be too shy, feel any shame and so on? And actually they were very open because it's a mix of Singaporean and also women from other countries. So that was a perfect mix actually to get feedback. And then, so the first thing that we did is we did a first workshop. At first, I went to Singapore. It was, I think, for Women International Day. I talked to all the girls and I explained that we were a sponsor, what we were doing, and so on. So that was the first introduction. At that time, I had the panty with me. I showed it to them, and that was the first introduction. And then 2 months later, we ran a workshop. So it's a menstrual educational workshop on menstruation, obviously. So we talk about different subjects, not even menstrual underwear, but it was really try to bring education on women health, also on sustainability, and also on the different product that exist on the market. Because my goal is never to push for my product. It's rather to give the education to every woman, and so after that, she can make her own decision. So that's what we did. So we explained the pros and the cons of the sanitary pad, of the tampons, of the cups, and then the menstrual underwear. And then obviously for those that wanted to try, then we provided one panty. And I know from what I heard that the one first obviously was like, oh, is it gonna leak? Because obviously when you're an athlete, you don't want to have any stain on your
Yeah.
clothes whenever you play. So that was the first question that was very legitimate. But then I think for those who try, they were very impressed. And I think that's the feeling that I have with most of my customer. And that's why I never push to buy 3 or 5 panties. I always say just buy one, you try, and if you like it, then you can buy other menstrual underwear. But I think the first feeling is the one that will convince any woman. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so how many in, say, 6 months, how many panties logically should a person be buying or investing in? How long does one panty last?
Yeah, so usually the lifespan of a menstrual underwear is between 3 to 5 years.
One menstrual underwear.
One menstrual underwear. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite long. After that, obviously, I've got some customer, they want to change a style or they're tired of using those, so they can change. But if you really are taking care of your panty, then you can keep it for 3 to 5 years. So on average, our recommendation is basically to own at least 3 panties. This is the minimum for a full cycle. And then if you really want to be comfortable, let's say between 5 to 7 panties is a right fit so that you don't have to wash your panties every time you have one.
And you have different designs and different colors?
Yeah, we have. So again, it was very difficult to try to fit all the needs, but we did black because we believe that black is something that is easy to wash. And also for those who are really afraid of the blood, then they cannot see. Then we made it red because we had some people saying, "Oh, but I want to see how much I lost, like how many blood yeah, how much blood I lost." We did a red version, and also red is also because it's the color of feminine let's say, sophistication to me. And it's the color of love. And I think we should love ourselves when we have our
Correct.
period. Then we did also nude color. So this one was particularly made for those who want invincibility underneath their clothes. And I'm really thinking of all the students in international schools or even in public schools that wear uniform. Usually the uniform is light colors, and they don't want to have black underwear or something that can be see-through. So we did the nude, and then we have an extra color that is navy blue.
Okay, good. And are you thinking of more colors
In the future,
in
yes,
the
if
future?
and to be totally transparent, I think when you decide to have another style or another colors, it's a lot of investment, especially for a young startup and a small company like ours. So if in the future I can raise investment and get more, let's say, cash flow, then definitely I would want to do a full swimsuit, a one-piece swimsuit, and add more color and style. Yeah,
That'll be amazing. Yes, but it's always money, right?
always.
Yeah, I know. I actually watched your Shark Tank conversation, your presentation, and I wanted to ask you what was the toughest question that you were asked, and what actually changed in your business the month after the show? Because I know you kept getting a no, you kept getting a no, you kept getting a no. And I think the way you handled it was absolutely amazing. But
Thank you.
what was the toughest question that you were asked that actually threw you off?
Oh, so just to give the setup, so it was five sharks and only one was a woman. So it was
Yeah,
four men,
yeah,
one lady.
yeah.
And so it's only 15 minutes from on TV, but recording was more than 2 hours. So it was really impressive to be in front of those sharks, and I think some of the question that I found. So it took me a year and a half to get prepared to go on Shark Tank. So I was fully prepared. I knew all of my subject, all of my finance, everything. But I think what was difficult to anticipate was the main overview of a woman's subject. And I was very comfortable in my subject, but I could feel that they were not, and they didn't know anything about the subject. So one of the questions that I had was like, we don't understand your product because women are happy with their current period products. And I was surprised of that question. And I was like, because I know 3/3 of women are dissatisfied. So I was like, but how do you know? And I was like, what kind of product exactly? So it was absolutely clueless. Like it didn't know what women were using for our period. So I was like, okay, it's a fact that you're asking a question and you absolutely have no idea of the subject. And then the second thing that was very frustrating, so I was not allowed to do a demonstration during the stage with the panty because it was too sensitive on TV. So I had to do it with a pad, and we couldn't really see it was a pad, a menstrual recyclable pad. So I had a liquid, it was blue ink and water. So not even like pink liquid or anything else. And I poured the liquid into the pad, and I really wanted for the shark to say on TV that it was absolutely dry. And when I came in front of the youngest shark, I was like, can you try? Can you touch? Tell your audience that it's completely dry. And he was like, can I touch? And I was like, in my head, I was like, dude, I'm not going to poison you. What kind of
Saw
thing
that,
is it?
yeah, and he saw that it was not blood, it was literally a
Yeah,
liquid. Yeah,
exactly. So I was
yeah.
like, and
No, I
especially
think
coming from someone very young, it was very disturbing for me.
yeah, and I think maybe rather than educating women, you should be, yes, focus on educating women, but I think you should also focus on educating men
Yeah.
who seem to have this, who've distanced themselves from the fact that this is a very natural phenomena for women. So I think men need to be equally educated, if not more, because
I
yeah.
fully agree with you. And you know what? It's so we're doing, and every time I talk to an investor, is like saying you're not doing things economically viable. But I'm giving workshop for free, so pro bono, to international schools, to medical centers, to private companies, and also to universities and to factories. And what I why I'm doing that. So for international school universities, I always ask for young girls and young men to be in the same room because I believe at that age they're, let's say, young enough to understand that this is a man and woman subject and that we should not be alone facing that. And then why I do it for private companies is because, and we know that it's a fact, most of the leaders today, unfortunately, are men, and those men are leading most of the time women. So I think it's very important whenever I go to a private companies and I'm doing a workshop, it's to include the men leaders in the conversation, because the more we will do that, the more they will know how to manage a woman during a cycle. And it's every month, so we need to address those concerns in a proper way. And when a woman say I cannot go to work today because my head is so heavy and the pain is just unbearable, then they need to understand that we're not just lying or pretending. So I think it's very important. And then the factories, why the factory? And it's something very close to my heart. It's because specifically in Vietnam, most of the factories, and specifically the one in garments industries, sometimes electronics, because they have very tiny hands, they work all day long, or even in automotive, they work all day long standing. And I think when they have their period, imagine the pain that those women can go through having to stay up all day long during their period, especially if they are under heavy pains. So I think it's very important, even for factory plants, to address those concerns. And I'm very happy that in Vietnam, Toyota was the first factory to actually address those concerns. So I'm trying to reach out to more factories, but again, it's always men leading usually in factories. Some women out there, but yeah, so it's really something that I'm trying to do. It takes a lot of my time, but this is something very important to my heart, definitely.
Yeah, I think my understanding is that you spent 18 years with luxury brands.
Yeah.
And after that experience, what made you want to do this? To actually set up your own brand, and something which, a subject which you yourself have mentioned is not very openly discussed. Now there are conversations around it, but it's taken years for people to really understand. And so, that's a very bold decision. So, I wonder what really prompted you into or pushed you into doing this.
First, I like the challenge. I think this is something that, and injustice is something that I'm trying to fight on an everyday basis. So for me, it was not fair that women from all over the world, specifically in Europe, in the US, in Australia, in Japan, millions of women have access to this product, menstrual underwear. They buy this product. Even in France, the government is actually reimbursing menstrual underwear. How progressive is that? And in Southeast Asia, where millions of units are sold in the world, no one even knows about it. It's not that they have no access to it, it's that they don't have the knowledge of it. And to me, it was like, that's not fair. And this product is already in any other international market for more than 10 years now. So that means we are 10 years behind all other international market for this type of product. Starting from this observation, and also at that time, and I'm still, I have three children. And to me, it was a wake up call. I was like, Celine, at one point of your life, you want to do something meaningful. And this product for me was doing something so meaningful for women health, but also for sustainability. And I guess it's also my responsibility, with the knowledge that I have in this industry, with the contact that I had, with the fact that I'm happily living for 18 years in Southeast Asia, to do also something for women living in Southeast Asia. So that's how it started. And the fact that my father obviously was in this industry really helped.
Very good. Yeah, no, good luck. And no, and I think you're taking good, very positive steps. And the fact that you've entered, so you're in Vietnam, in Thailand as well?
No, we wanna. Our next step will be Thailand. So right now we're in marketplace, so Shopee and Lazada in Malaysia, and we are just starting so in Singapore with offline store, so Guardians, and then online with Guardians as well, and our own channel, own website.
Oh, yeah. So I think Singapore is a very mature market, and I'm sure you will be able to make good progress. And then that can be like a sort of a benchmark for you to then look at other countries within Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Celine. One, for
Thank
what
you
you're
so much.
doing. I think it's commendable. And I know it's not like a luxury brand that you can go
No.
and get investments really quickly. It is a product which I think is very important and for awareness as well as for women to start to look differently at the different products that they have and they wear or they use. And I think also the fact that you are talking to schools, you're talking to companies, you're talking to universities, and you're doing all of this pro bono is only because you want the messaging to be clear and you want people to become aware and understand and appreciate that women do go through what they do. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
think no shame is very important.
yeah,
And if I can add, I think there's another subject that is not related to my product, but I think the menopause also for women should be a subject that must be more and more addressed because so many women are going through menopause alone. They don't even know what they're facing before going into menopause, and it's already too late. And I think there's a lot of misconception and taboos. If I can in the future, this is a conversation that I definitely want to open as well.
yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right that there is a not, I think the understanding of one, what's going on internally within your body is something which is very confusing for a lot of women who are going through it. And two is their partners not being able to understand
Exactly. Yeah.
what it means to have all these changes within your body. And I know that there are some celebrities who are now very
Talking.
openly talking about it. I'm aware of that. And I think, yeah, even for you to, you're already associated with a product which is helping women.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's sustainable, the fact that it's not going into landfills and it's not environmentally unfriendly. I think that is such an important factor. And then if you add on talking to women and men about menopause and making them understand, I think you would have really made, you're already making a difference, and I think you'll make a bigger difference.
I hope so.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for helping out.
Yeah, no, I'm sure and I do hope that my platform and this conversation reaches a lot of people and people in Singapore and wherever else in Southeast Asia. And it helps in sending out a very positive message.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I appreciate what Guardian is doing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really thankful as well because they're taking risk and they know it's not a huge revenue, but at least they have the product on shelf, which is very important for I think a lot of women.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And for the message that they want to send. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great initiative. So, anyways, thank you so much, Selena.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed listening to you and talking to you. And I absolutely hope that there is a much bigger impact
Yeah.
in the months and the years to come.